Have you ever wondered why platforms float and where endless pits come from? Of course you don't. Like the majority of people, you may be just thinking it's for level design, and you may be right. But what if I told you that there may be a reason as to why these elements to the Sonic games exist? Well, forget about answering that question because I'm about to find out myself. That there may be a canon reason why floating platforms and endless pits exist. So what evidence is there that floating platforms are actually elements to the Sonic worlds? Well, there is one single Sonic game in the Sonic series to incorporate floating objects as a plot point. And that game is... Sonic Unleashed. In the opening cutscene of the game, Eggman literally shoots Earth and splits it into pieces, and you can clearly see that all of the crust of the Earth is floating above the mantle. So that means that the Earth has some form of hovering abilities. If you look at Sonic Lost World, the game literally gets you to run on a strip of floating land. Although that's not a plot point, it is a pretty big design decision. So what if both Earth and the Lost Hex have some sort of element that keeps them afloat? What if with natural areas like Green Hill Zone and Angel Island... Also, when I say Angel Island, I mean it's the floating platforms. I know that the base of the island is lifted by the Master Emerald. Are kept afloat with this element. And areas like Springyard Zone and City Escape are man-made. People are obviously using the energy of this element to make things like the lights and the bumpers or those weird hexagon thingies float. So, what could this element be? You know what I think? It's the rings. I mean, the rings do float and spin in the air. In Sonic Unleashed, Chip says the Earth is supposed to break open and that Eggman caused it to break open early, so that means that the rings are there for a purpose. It's not just a coincidence. Sonic Unleashed also seems to throw rings at you like crazy, like literally. You can finish a lot of stages with 500 rings at the end. And that's a lot compared to other Sonic games. What the heck? So I'm assuming that all these rings are here for a reason. To keep the Earth floating. And since these rings are literally scattered everywhere, they get absorbed by the surrounding areas or people use them to keep their structures afloat. Sonic Lost World does have a lot more rings than some of the other Sonic games, but not as much as Unleashed. Probably because the Lost Hex's floating lands have been floating ever since formation, so the rings are basically absorbed slowly into the ground. You can actually see in Windy Hill Act 3 that there are rings hidden in tiny crystal shards. But then what about Sonic? He doesn't start floating when he absorbs the rings. Well, as I mentioned before, the rings are keeping the Earth and the Lost Hex's floating islands in the sky. Sonic is just not supposed to be floating above the ground, like how a PS4 game won't work on an Xbox One. But the rings' energies can be harnessed and used for technology, but Sonic absorbs the rings as they naturally are, so he's not getting the required changes to the rings to get him to float. But in Sonic Unleashed, he does run faster when he collects the rings, and this may be because the rings are working to keep the Earth afloat. So Sonic would be light-weighted and be able to run faster. But there are also other signs that Sonic is actually using the rings' gravitational abilities when he wants to. Whenever Sonic gets hit by an enemy, he gets pushed back from the enemy, right? Like, he just touches them and then he gets pushed away.
It doesn't go that fast. No!
Or maybe he's using the rings to repel himself from the enemies. This is also why he loses the rings, as they all start to repel and push each other away. But now we're running into another problem. Why does Sonic lose only some of his rings in Sonic Unleashed and Sonic Generations? This can be linked back to the Earth's crust floating. Since the rings were called to lift the Earth's crust, they may be in some kind of mode where they can endure more forces. This ends in Sonic only losing some of his rings, most likely the ones that he more recently absorbed. Then we have Generations, where time is simply just screwed up, so the rings are just both trying to adapt, and the Unleashed events are strengthening the rings even though it's not required. But why can Sonic activate the ring's powers? Well, maybe it's similar to how only a few characters can use the Chaos Emeralds. Since the Chaos Emeralds are more powerful, there are only a few select characters, like Sonic and Shadow, that can use them. Rings are a much more common and less powerful energy source though, so characters such as Amy and Eggman can absorb them. So we've established that the rings are a power source that keeps the Earth and Lost Hex Island thingies floating. But what about the endless pits I mentioned at the very beginning of the video? Have you ever wondered why platforms float and where endless pits come from? Well, it all comes back to Unleashed again. Chip says the Earth breaks apart every few million years, so the Earth has obviously broken apart before. So when the Earth breaks apart and then gets put together again, do you guys really think that it will fit perfectly? I mean, if you look at the opening cutscene, there are bits and pieces of the Earth's surface just breaking away from the mainland. So wouldn't it make sense for small gaps leading to the center of the Earth to be unable to be filled because the pieces of the Earth were misplaced? This explains why Sonic dies, because he's literally falling into the center of the Earth, where all of the hot magma is and stuff. And it's instant death because there's no returning from under the crust.
Yes! Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Shh.
So what do you guys think? Could this be some hidden lore behind Sonic? Probably not. But you guys should leave a like anyways.